Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. The Outdoor Adventure Series celebrates individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, access, and enjoyment of the outdoors. Our guest today is Rick Saez. Rick is an adventurer, author, accomplished photographer, and podcaster, and he is the host of the Outdoor Biz podcast. Rick joined us back in 2021 to chat about his work, and I was really excited to bring him back on because he just returned from Ireland, where he accompanied a group of journalists on a press trip sponsored by Tourism Ireland and Stellar. So, Rick, so glad to have you back on the podcast in this early Friday morning.
Yeah, thanks. A second time visitor. That's exciting.
I don't do this for everybody, but you're a good guy and trying to help you out a little bit, but
I appreciate it.
you don't need any help from me.
I
But
appreciate it. It's always fun.
yeah, definitely. And I just thought it'd be kind of cool to get you back on so you can share with our audience what you've been up to. And I really want to hear more about this trip to this press junket to Ireland because I'm like, man, I got to do something like that. So, but before we jump in, just for our listeners, if they're a first time listener, hopefully they'll go back to the first episode we did, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. But
Yeah.
give a little backstory about who is Rick Saez. How'd you get into this world of podcasting?
Yeah. So, as you've heard the story, I kind of stumbled into podcasting. I've been in the outdoor industry space since I grew up. I mean, one of the things I realized early on in college, I was going to go to college to either study architecture or civil engineering. And, the both programs were impacted. So I had to take a bunch of other classes and wasn't digging it, flunked out and went to a JC and took a wildlife law enforcement class and an environmental biology class. And both of those classes were outdoor focused. Both of them had outdoor outings. The biology class, the instructor had some slides from back when Glen Canyon had not been dammed yet. It was still running free. Beautiful space. And I'd always been an outdoor guy. My grandfather was a hunter, and we always played outside and hiked outside and camped. So that was just like, wow, this is cool. And so I'm thumbing through the catalog back at the university, and I saw outdoor recreation and thought, boom, that's it. That's my next degree. So canned all the plans for architecture and civil engineering to the dismay of my family, probably, but got 2 degrees in outdoor recreation and immediately was fortunate enough to teach at an outdoor camp and work at an outdoor retail shop on the weekends, and then got into river guiding in the summers. And it just sealed the deal. And the river guiding thing connected me to the outdoor industry world where reps buy and sell products. And I was being a sales manager and a product manager and that so forth for a lot of years, over 20 years in the outdoor space. It's been just great. And then got laid off at 50 some odd years old from a brand that was been a lot of bought and sold kind of things going on with venture capital firms and whatnot. And they were being sold. And I was caught up in the last round of layoffs and thought, geez, man, I'm over 50. We all knew this was coming. So our resumes were floating out and about, wasn't getting any action on mine. I thought I might be done. What the hell am I going to do? And I had a 45-minute one-way commute to this job. So I had a lot of time to listen to podcasts. And that's when I discovered podcasting. And I was listening to the Tim Ferriss show and Pat Flynn and John Lee Dumas. All those guys were just hitting their heyday. Podcasting was just becoming a thing. And the Tim Ferriss show, he's just an interesting guy. He's got a lot of interesting things that he's into. He's into a lot of different things like I am. And I thought I could just kind of copy what Tim does. I could just interview all the people I have connected with in the outdoor adventure travel space, and it could be a pretty interesting show. So I did some research, figured out how to do it. I had no experience with audio, a lot of experience with photography, but I had some equipment. And one of the Tim's best advice, I give people this advice all the time, is don't go out and buy a bunch of stuff. Just use what you have, test drive it, do a couple things, see if you like it, because you might not like it.
Right.
I love it, and started the podcast, and here we are. I just dropped episode 350 this week, so it's been fantastic.
That is fantastic. 350. And to your point of you had the early guys, the folks that started out in the world of podcasting, Ferris, Pat Flynn, et cetera. And I get a lot of chatter. I read a lot of chatter like on the Facebook group because you and I have different platforms that we use for our podcast. But
Right.
there's always this one question like, how do I start a podcast? And I want to do it. There's all the equipment And I'm like, look, if you want to start a podcast, we could start right now.
Yep.
And I think, and then you start to learning about what should I do next? What's next? What's the next best move? And I love that. And from your perspective, if you had somebody come up to you today and they said, Rick, I heard your podcast. I love it. I really want to do it. How would you share with them about the ease or some of the things they need to think about starting a podcast?
Well, it's I have this 10 simple steps document that I send out to beginning people I start working with on my coaching program. And it is really simple. I mean, I tell everybody the first few episodes that I did, I had a microphone, but I used my earbud headset, plugged it into the computer. The mic was plugged into the computer, and just did it all that way. So you really don't need a lot of equipment. And the second thing is, I think you really have to focus on, if you just want to start it just to have fun with it and play around with it, then it's not as important as picking a good topic and all that. But if you really think it's something that you want to get into, then you really need to focus on what value do you bring to the table? What are your experiences? What is your expertise? Because we all love to learn from one another. And that's why I focused on the outdoor biz, because I think everybody can be more successful if they learn from those of us that came before. So those of us that have been in the industry for a long time have a lot of experience, started when the industry was young, it evolved. We have all these great stories of either how you got started, how you screwed up and got fired, or whatever it might be. So pick a topic that you have a lot of stuff in. It could be something that you just want to riff on every week, or every day. I mean, it's up to you, but figure out your format and just go for it, and only commit to doing a handful of episodes. Do 2, 3, 4, 5 episodes to, again, see if you like it. Because if you do those 5 episodes and you get them all done, you realize, that's a bit of work. And it's not that much work, I don't think. But if that's where you're at, then don't do it, because then it's going to be like a chore. You don't want it to be a chore. But if you do it and you dig it as much as I did, and it turns out to be fun, and you get a lot of positive feedback, keep rolling. It's great.
Yeah, that's good advice. And I'm curious, your podcast, has it always been an interview format, or have you just kind of gone on by yourself and just riffed away? Do you bring a guest on and you just riff away? It's not, or actually, I would say it's more like a partner rather than a guest,
Yeah.
and just kind of banter back and forth amongst yourselves.
Yeah, it's always been an interview format. I thought about that a lot when I was starting out, and I really love the Tim Ferriss format. And I really believe in the outdoor industry. What helped me was all the relationships and experiences I had from some of the people that have been in the industry since the beginning. I had good relationships with the founder of Eagle Creek, the founder of Jansport, and those guys started the industry. Some other folks, the founder of Wilderness Experience. And I worked at a retail shop, one of the old, long-time retail shops in San Diego, Adventure 16. So those folks that had been in the space a long time have a lot to share, and a lot that you can learn from them. And so that's what I patterned my show over. That's why I say I think everybody will be better and have a longer, better career if you learn from those that came before you, because they've already made all the mistakes, and you can learn from those mistakes, avoid them sometimes not. But and I think if you learn in the history of whatever it is you're doing, how it got started, why it got started, it just provides a solid foundation for continuing. So that's kind of how I came up with the format. And then it's just been an interview every week. I just, again, 30 years in the industry, I have an unlimited supply of guests to talk to. And fortunately, they've all been super generous. The feedback's been great. So, it's awesome.